The Menu is a satirical thriller about an eccentric celebrity chef who gives a group of wealthy diners much more than they bargained for. It's got a rising scream queen, an esteemed actor, and Luigi from the hit movie Super Mario Bros. So let's dig in to The Menu. Welcome everyone! Male Fuzz Movies invites you to Screams After Midnight. I'm Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
No.
Was that hello?
This is me enjoying some delicious food.
This is a horror movie podcast. We get together, we talk about horror movies, and we were going to do our top 10 of 2022, but Tim, very last minute, said, can we sneak in one more 2022 movie before we do it?
Please, Peter.
Yeah, that's how it sounded like. Yeah, that was accurate. Yeah. And he said, let's do The Menu. Oh, I do The Menu. And I said, okay, fine, Tim, we'll do The Menu before we get to our top 10. Which, you know, was on the radar. You know, people are talking about it. I think it just hit HBO Max in the last week, and that's why it's kind of resurged a little bit since its initial release. So we'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers. The Menu is a horror comedy. It is a very dark comedy. A very satirical film. It stars Anya Taylor-Joy as a young woman who's invited by a rich guy played by Nicholas Hoult to a very esteemed beast from the Young X-Men movies, yes. Very esteemed restaurant that's on its own little island that you get taken to by boat. All the people pay over 12 grand a head to go. Oof. Yep, that's how expensive it is. We
gotta open a Mylod Fuzz restaurant.
Can any of us cook, Tim?
What's my specialty? Do you know what pizza muffins are? I can make those.
I mean, I know what a pizza is and I know what a muffin is. I'm intrigued. But no, I do not know what a pizza muffin is.
It's not like a cupcake muffin. It's like an English muffin. You know, you basically just slice it down and toast it, put some cheese on it, maybe a little bit of sliced pepperoni.
Ooh, yeah, very, very fancy. I love how you've just tried to make other things more like pizza.
Yeah. Or not. Actually, I was eating I was just eating like Domino's when I watched this movie, which is kind of funny. Just like eating very like basic fast food takeout pizza.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into the culinary aspects of the film. Probably more so in spoilers.
I'm a little bit of a foodie, so I'll.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. Do you know what? As I was watching this, Tim, I was thinking, which one of these eccentric characters is Tim going to pretend that he's like? Because that's what you do.
Okay.
And then secondly, I was thinking, which one is he going to claim that I am? Because that's also something you do.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, I would be the chef, and yeah.
And I'm the Nicholas Hoult of the operation. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Yeah. See, you're so predictable, Tim. You're predictable. I'm getting so good at seeing your bullshit just like in advance. Yeah, so they go to this posh restaurant, very esteemed, chef's famous, chef of course played by Fiennes, I think that's how you say his name, and he's an actor I know very well, but I've just gotten his name wrong for decades at this point.
Oh yeah.
But he's in a bunch of stuff. So
Red Dragon, I think.
He's in what?
Red Dragon, right?
I mean, I've not seen Red Dragon. That's the one you went with, not Schindler's List, not like numerous things that he's been in over the years.
Is he Wreck-It Ralph?
I'm pretty sure that was John C. Reilly.
Oh, they just named him after the actor.
At least I think it was anyway. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen Wreck-It Ralph, but yeah. Wait, what? I didn't even hear what you said until like a minute later, and I went, wait, what?
It's Wreck-It Ralph.
I know, but you don't pronounce his name Ralph. I used to call him Ralph, and then I was corrected. Tara told me off for calling him Ralph.
Wait, so what is his name again?
Rafe.
Rafe. Oh, that's pretty cool. Like Raphael, my favorite Ninja Turtle.
Yeah, so they're given, you know, this seven. What's that guy doing food? They're given this 7-course. What's funny is I just recorded the first Ninja Turtles movie on Collector's Cut because we're doing them all. I just think it's funny how that movie talks so much about one food and pizza, and then this movie is, you know, the posh high dining experience where there's a theme to the menu. It's an art form, like it's supposed to like evoke something over the course of the 5 or 6 courses or however many it is, and all the rest of it. But you know, some key details here is that Anya Taylor-Joy's character wasn't originally meant to be coming to this thing. Whoever was going with Nicholas Holt's character, his name is Tyler, which I remember because it comes up in a very funny way later on in the movie. But his name's Tyler, and he was going with someone else. For whatever reason, she cancelled or they broke up, and he's brought her instead. And this is kind of a wrench in the plans because the chef and his staff prepare food specifically for the guests. They know they're coming. They do a bit of research on them, that kind of thing. And there's more to it than that, of course, but that sort of sets up. So there's kind of a weird tone. It's kind of like, do you know what it is? It's like someone watched that episode of Seinfeld with the soup Nazi.
Yeah.
It said, let's make a whole movie where people just start to get really uneased by the amount of power and control that the chef and his staff or you know have over the guests. But there's a lot of social commentary and satire that sort of comes out as it goes on. So a lot of lines did make me laugh out loud. We'll share some of them in spoilers, of course. But that is the gist of it. So Tim,
yeah,
I'm not going to be surprised by the answer, I don't think, because you said we need to do this movie before we do our top 10. But how did you find the menu?
I liked it quite a bit. So I remember seeing the trailer for this, you know, like early on. I don't know if you can hear that noise in the background.
I can.
I got it.
What is it?
We got like a new robot litter box thing. It looks like it has these lights on it that, like, when you turn off the lights at night, it kind of like glows, and it looks exactly like the pod from The Fly.
Wonderful. I think I saw a Twitter photo actually now that you mentioned it, but
so I apologize, but hey, what do you want? It's a free podcast. Who cares?
I care, damn it. What we do here is strive for perfection.
I get you. Yeah, so no, I remember seeing the trailer and thinking, like, not really having like much of a reaction, like not really being like, well, that looks stupid, but also not really being like, well, I can't wait to see that. I forget how much the trailer gave away. Like, I feel like I didn't really know the like exact premise or whatever, because I actually thought this movie was going to be about something else, which it turned out not to be.
You thought they were going to try and eat Anya Taylor-Joy, didn't you?
Well, I mean, I thought in general it was going to be a cannibal movie. Like,
yeah.
Especially because, like you said, it is very like satirical and stuff. Which you kind of, get that even early on, like from the trailer and stuff. So I thought it was going to be like a very literal, like eat the rich, kind of premise. But it's not exactly. And I guess I wasn't sure if we were going to do it because I have heard other people not even call this a horror movie, which I disagree with that. Like, I do understand that it is definitely like a comedy. Like you said, it's a dark comedy. Like, it's not like a goofy, like, laugh a minute kind of thing, but it is very satirical and there's like a dark humor to it. But I do also think it is like very tense, and there are moments that are very like horror focused, and I guess I can't really talk about it without going into spoilers, but once you kind of find out like what the menu really is and kind of the purpose of everyone being there that night, then you kind of see like where the horror element comes in. But I'd actually had heard this getting like good buzz after it had come out, and I know a couple of people that like I know my brother and I had a couple of friends and stuff said like, oh no, it's really good, and I think even a couple of people saying it was like, oh, surprisingly, it's like one of their favorites of the year. So naturally I was really excited to watch it, and I don't think it it lived up to the hype for me. I thought it was really well done. I thought the cast is all really good. I'm starting to really I don't know. I get happy when I see Anna Taylor-Joy and stuff. I think she's a delight. She's always good. I liked her in this quite a bit. The guy that plays the chef, was really good.
I don't know what he was saying his name there.
Rolf, whatever. But no, like everyone's good. Like John Leguizamo was really good.
Do you know, Tim, I can't get away from this guy. Like this is like the fourth movie I've watched in the last month that he's just popped up in.
I was wondering. I was like, is he making a comeback? Like, how do we feel about him? Is he good? Because I know he's in Violent Night. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, he's the main bad guy in Violent Night. Not a new movie, but I just happened to watch the remake of Assault on Precinct 13 on New Year's Eve, and he's in that. Like, and I didn't know he was in it. He popped up, and then he was in something else that I saw recently, and I can't remember what it was now. But he kept popping up.
Yeah. Speaking of Seinfeld, I was like, it's a pop-up. It seems like something to say. But no, I think it's just it's a very solid movie. It's it's fun, and it's not quite a bottle movie, but most of it does take place in just kind of like this one room of the restaurant, which I thought was neat. But it never got boring because like each table has kind of like their own thing going with the characters, so it's always fun kind of bouncing back, and everyone kind of seems like they all have like secrets or something maybe like almost sinister or something like that that's kind of being kept from them, so it's exciting to kind of see like all that unfold and see where the story goes. And I don't know, I thought it was a lot of fun.
I liked the movie quite a bit. It's like I say, it's quite funny in places. It did make me laugh quite a bit. The director, Mark Mylod, however you say his name.
Mark Miller, famous comic book.
No, not him. No, not him. He apparently is known for doing HBO shows. He directs a lot of Succession, which I've never watched. I know people rave about it.
That's on my to-watch list. Yeah, I've heard it's great, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, and that's obviously dealing with a lot of rich characters. I don't really know much about it, but I do know it's about a lot of rich people, caring about where the family money or business is getting passed down to and stuff.
Yeah, that one's like more like satirizing like nepotism. I feel like it's a lot of like fail sons and stuff.
Yeah, so I could definitely see, even though I've not seen that, I can certainly see that like why someone who's involved in that would sort of also be a part of this movie, because there is a lot of satire of different classes and the relationship between those classes and all that sort of stuff, and certainly kind of the entitlement and like tastes of the rich, which obviously at a restaurant that charges $12,000 a head for a meal clearly is for the rich. So yeah. So that's something that obviously is throughout. Like you said, performances are good. It was kind of fun. Like, I think the thing that made me most impressed with it is that there's this kind of like shifting of where your sympathies may lie as the movie goes on as a viewer, because I think at first you're like, okay, once things start to feel a bit nefarious, and it's like, okay, even though they're not necessarily all the best bunch of people, do you kind of side with the victims here? And then you go, well, maybe not, because it feels like what the chef and everyone else is like doing, it's like, okay, there's kind of like a point to it, and maybe you do kind of side more with them, but I feel like it doesn't sort of absolve of that side either. I think it does a really good job of like bouncing you back and forth with like who you actually sympathize with more, and it makes it so key that we have a protagonist in the middle of it, Anya Taylor-Joy's character, Margot, who is there by accident and isn't a part of either group. So it's someone who kind of is just separate from the whole thing, and we get to kind of examine things differently through her, and it ultimately is the one character that we can kind of latch onto in a lot of ways. So yeah, so no, but no, I thought it was a very well paced movie that slowly sort of like peeled back what it was doing, like an onion, you might say, since we're talking about food. Sure. So yeah, no, it was I had a good time. it's definitely a movie we're going to talk about what it actually means and what it's like getting at, because that's really what the whole thing is. It's definitely one of those types of movies. Not without being like constantly entertaining though, because it is constantly entertaining. There's moments of tension. There's moments where the tension will build up to quite a good laugh, which doesn't actually take away from the tension itself. It's just that when you get the point of what something is, like it goes from being tense to being like, oh, this is what the point of this bit was, or what the point of what the chef was doing here was, or so on. And I'm dancing around spoilers, obviously, I don't want to reveal anything yet. But yeah, that was a good time. So
I like how the movie kind of like breaks down like it's kind of like segmented like with each like food item.
Each course, yes, it comes up with a title saying what the course is, and yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, no, that does break it down. At the start of the movie, I was thinking, oh, I don't know how many courses this is going to be. I wonder if I'll remember all the courses. I think there was too many for me to remember what every single course was. But obviously, we'll do our best and we'll get into it all. It's got a bit of there's a very dry wit at times, but there's also kind of a heart to it by the end as well, which was also a little bit surprising.
Sure.
It's kind of like. It's kind of like how the chef himself is obviously got a lot of statements he wants to make and he's being very critical, but I think by the end there's also kind of this, like, he's not letting himself off the hook for being part of it, if that makes sense, and I think that kind of adds a bit of depth to the character and a bit of depth to what the movie's doing, as opposed to, because you said Eat the Rich, and I think it still very much kind of is an Eat the Rich movie, just not literally. It's just they're not literally eating the rich, but it's kind of about going after the rich for who they are and what they've done and that kind of thing. But it does add this extra layer to it of accountability for everyone involved, which is an interesting spin. So I had a good time. It definitely made me crave a specific food item by the end.
Yeah. I'm guessing like the least fancy food item there.
Well, I don't want to spoil it. I'm being coy.
I gotcha.
But
I agree. No, that it did look quite good.
Yeah. So
now, do you personally, do you know anyone that's like a foodie? Because I definitely know some people like this, and I've spent some time with them, and I've just been like, God bless them, but it's like, come on, let's just get some fish and chips or something.
Not really, no. I've never really had anyone I've been close to who's like been into food as a culture, if you will. Yeah. People who care about what they eat, sure, but not this.
Yeah.
Not this. It's so funny, actually. It was hard not to think a little bit about Pig, which is not a horror movie, but just that's about a chef who's kind of like left the business and criticizes another chef for being like a hoity-toity bastard at one point in the movie. There was definitely kind of some commentary in that film, which I think kind of spills nicely. This is almost like a companion piece to that movie in a weird way.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
It's a good observation. I didn't think about that movie, but it's another really good movie. I like that one quite a bit.
Yeah, it's weird that we got a couple of chef-focused satirical, movies, and within a couple of years of each other.
I don't know, like I don't know if like chef stuff is becoming popular because there's this what's it called? There's like this show on FX that people liked. Bear, yeah, which the only not that it has like a lot of similarities between this, but it just made me think of it because I watched the first few episodes of that, and in that they're always going, yes chef, which I didn't even know that was like a thing they do in restaurants, but obviously they do that a lot in here where the chef issues a command.
Yes, they'll say yes chef. Yes, there's a lot of yes chefing in this. Yes,
and let's not forget about the realm of video games where Overcooked is a popular game.
In fact, even beyond that, Plate Up has kind of become the big thing to stream in the last year, which is kind of like Overcooked.
I haven't even heard of that.
It's like Overcooked, but you also get to like assemble what the kitchen layout is. So like as you go through it, you hope to like get automated parts to like help make some of the things quicker. So, so yeah, there's that. Also, speaking of things, just a random kind of coincidence that it was hard not to think a little bit of Glass Onion as I was watching this as well, because that was a group of characters invited to an island, and I watched that on just before Christmas. So it's funny how an actor that I've been seeing pop up a lot was in this. There's a premise that's kind of similar-ish to another movie I watched recently. There was a lot of little things in this that feels very much like it's like tying a bow on a couple of different just random personal themes of watching stuff recently. It's weird.
Yeah.
But
So it's just been a good time for movie. I don't know if there's just been maybe more good movies streaming lately, or if maybe since it's like the year's ending or whatever, people are just throwing stuff up like kind of willy-nilly, because I feel like I've watched a lot of good stuff lately.
I think it's just more good stuff. Like, and it's kind of funny. I almost get whiplash thinking about it, because 2020 and 2021 were garbage. Like, they were absolutely garbage for movies.
Yeah.
Not that there was nothing good, but it was like I couldn't make top tens for either of those years. Not even for horror. I mean, just in general, I can't do a top 10 of 2020 without putting movies on it that I don't like, because there's just not a lot of good movies out in 2020. And to almost the same extent 2021. 2022 by comparison, there's like actual competition. Like, I'm having to cut things that I like to make a top 10 of things. So and horror especially has had a pretty solid 2022.
Yeah, very good year. Yeah. So, movies are back, baby.
And obviously we're in 2023 now, but we're just finishing up our 2022 viewings before we get to our top 10 next time. So
top Tim.
Top what? Repeat yourself, Tim.
Said top Tim.
I have nothing to add. I just wanted to force you to say it again so everyone could laugh and mock. Wait, that smile off your face.
We should do a top 10. That'd be fun.
What is a top 10? What does that consist of?
So, let's see. There's me, of course. There's Tim Drake. There's Tim Curry. Tim Robbins. That might be it.
I'm sure there's more Tims. There's definitely more Tims than that.
Well, yeah, but you can't. Not everyone can be in the top Tim list.
So it's not 10. It's just the ones that make a cut off, and that's just where we stop. Okay, all right. Just check.
Oh, Tim Meadows, of course.
Yeah, obviously.
The ladies' man himself. Ooh, it's a lady.
Okay, let's talk about spoilers, because I really want to get away from this conversation as quickly as I possibly can. So, full spoilers for the menu from henceforth. You have been warned. So, yeah, and it's like, obviously it's a bit hoity-toity, and I think having a character like Anya Taylor-Joy's Margot,
which, let's face it, she's a joy to watch on screen.
Margot, right from the start, is like, she's kind of like not into any of this. She's like, this is all a bunch of hoity-toity bullshit. It's all about pretentious. She's kind of the viewpoint which most of the audience will relate to, because they're going to like be looking through her eyes. So even right from the get-go, the idea that it costs $12,000 or whatever, the idea that it costs that much, the idea that they have to take a boat to the island, that there's backstory behind some of the courses and things like that. Her reaction to these things immediately is like a conduit for the audience. Like, she really is representing us and reacting to everything in this movie and all the pretension that it sort of comes with. So yeah, we're introduced to a whole bunch of characters getting on the boat to go to the island. John Leguizamo, he is an actor who's kind of past his prime, and he's going to be trying to do like a new cooking show or something, which is why he's made a point of like getting a seat at this restaurant for the night. He's Brian, his assistant, who I wasn't actually sure if he was having like an affair with her, or if it was just that she knew a bunch of things that his wife didn't know. I wasn't sure exactly.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking affair just because you have the what you call it, the older couple where like the husband's having an affair, and it's like, yeah, you don't need everyone to be having an affair.
No, that's true. But yeah, you've got a married couple who are, again, I mean, everyone's kind of hoity-toity, but like there are different kinds of hoity-toity. There's like a trio of like tech investor guys who are, kind of douchey effectively. And then there's a food critic who she brings her manager, or the guy who like works with the magazine that she writes for. They're together. And then is that everyone in the group? I think maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, of all the guests.
Or I mean, I don't know if you include his mother in that group.
No, I would include the mother. No. I think that's most of them anyway, if not all of them. But the idea is that they're all, they're all 1%ers or close to. They're all kind of part of that social circle, and they're all going here. So Margot feels out of place right from the get go.
Yeah, and like you were saying, like I think it does a good job of like making them all like stand out and be very different. So it makes it interesting, kind of like as it's going on, you see like everyone's different viewpoints and how they react to things. But yeah, it's interesting because they're all rich hoity-toity, like you said, but in various different ways. Like you have someone in like the Hollywood side of things, and then you have someone that just seems like they're just like a rich businessy asshole guy, and then you have like young tech bro guys and stuff. So it does a really good job of like kind of mixing up these different types of characters, but they're all like interesting to watch.
And then Tyler, of course, who's bringing Margot, he's like excited about this. He's really into this. He watches all the shows that the chef's involved in. He basically represents the pretentious guy who thinks he's studied all this, and he's like really high standards, and he's constantly talking about the delicacy of it and how much he cares about it. And obviously that takes this turn as well as the movie goes on, where he starts like, when Margot is like spoken to rudely by the staff or by the chef, or they do something where she's like, hey, this isn't right, like we should be getting treated better or something like that, he immediately like he starts acting out. The big moment I probably would get to is that where he sort of snaps his fingers at her, and she's like, did you just snap your fingers at me? He's like, well, yeah, because you're acting like a child. Right? And it's like, I paid for all this, so just F and E. And it's like, oh, okay, all right. I mean, he was already like a dick. Like, he was already like a complete like pretentious douchebag who clearly was a bit of a poser, the way he talked about all this stuff. But that's the moment where it's like, oh, you don't respect her at all. You just wanted a pretty lady on your arm when you came here.
I actually did feel like a little sympathy for him like early on, just because like he is like pathetic, but also it's like you can tell that this like means the world to him. So anytime that like he messes something up or like kind of gets called out for something, like I did feel a little bad for him. But yeah, like once he basically turns his back on Margot, which I think at that point you still don't really, or at least I wasn't quite sure what the relationship was. So I figured that they were like at least friends or dating or like something that I would demand like. It
was definitely new though, because clearly he was coming here with another woman, and then that changed, and he's bringing her instead. So clearly this is like a fresh relationship, if it is indeed that. Obviously we learn a bit more later, but
then once he snaps his fingers and stuff though, that is like definitely the turning point where it's like, all right, well, screw you, man. But
well, he's a bit incelly, right? Because like there's a line early on where he says, oh, I didn't go to your prom, and she's like, oh, why? And he's like, all the cool girls that you all said no. And she says, forget those idiots or something like that. And it's like, okay, kind of sweet, like, right? But then as the movie goes on, it becomes kind of clear that he's obsessed with having a cool girl with him. He keeps saying, you're the coolest person here, like no one else here is as cool as you. Like it is very much like he wanted to bring a trophy rather than a person. And that's kind of reiterated as the night goes on. But he very much belittles her, and it becomes a bit money. I'm paying for this, so just F and E. Like it becomes that very quickly.
Yeah, in a way, like he might get like the worst comeuppance out of like anyone.
Oh, he does. Well, see, here's the thing. Like, so his whole thing, right? That with me is that, like, past this point, I never really felt sympathy for him, but his comeuppance that he gets from the chef is so like mean and like punishing that it was one of the things that made me go, I don't think I completely side with the chef either. He's maybe been a bit too cruel with this. Like, so I guess we'll talk about this now because since we brought it up. So she wasn't meant to be there, right? And as the night goes on, like the chef even asked to see Margot privately and says, you weren't meant to be here. You're not one of them. You're one of us. You implying there's a class system. You're a server. You're someone who works for money, for a living, to survive. You're not one of these filthy rich people who are arrogant and all the rest of it. You're not one of them.
He divides them into like givers and takers.
Yeah, that's the word
you're
he
not
uses,
like a taker.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you the choice to be with us or be with them when we all die later. And she's like, and that's the reveal that there's going to be death. Like, there's definitely going to be death at the end of it, right? And we'll get into all what that means in a bit and all the rest of it. But this sets this up that this is the wrench in the whole plan, is that the guest list was curated because it was all people the chef felt comfortable, or not even comfortable, like he wanted to kill. Like he wants to kill these people. And this woman who's been brought here last minute is innocent, and not only is she innocent, she's not even like a rich asshole like everyone else. She's actually someone that he kind of will feel sympathy for. So after whatever course later, and at this point they all kind of know to some extent that they're in danger, because there's kind of like a, it rises as the courses go on. Like at first it's just they're inconvenient, they're annoyed, and then it's like, oh, there's actual danger here, something bad's actually happened. We'll get into what all those things are. But after one of the courses, I think it's between these two last courses, before we get to the final course, something unplanned happened, and he sits down in front of everyone, and at this point everyone's kind of expecting to die now. Everyone knows they're going to die, or at least that's what the plan is. And the chef says to Tyler, I told you that everyone was going to die. And it kind of gets into this, and if anything, if I have a critique about the movies, it could have explored this a little bit more, this idea that when he was apparently they were emailing each other, and he invited Tyler to this. He told Tyler that the end of this menu was to be killed, and Tyler came. And I think it kind of gets into, not only does he worship and does he have this pretension about the art of cuisine and all these like little things that he's doing, and taking it all very seriously and being like, I don't even know the word, like a pretentious asshole, really.
Yeah.
It's also got that kind of cult-like element where he worships his. So he's like a Zack Snyder fan, right? And Zack Snyder's invited him to his cult, and he said, look, we're all going to watch my final film together, and then we're all going to drink the Kool-Aid and die. And he's like, yeah, I worship you, Zack Snyder. Like, I'm up for it, right? This is, it's
a great example.
I don't know, I'm being a bit mean with this example, but just to get the point across.
I think it works.
Right? And you brought this woman anyway. I told you that everyone coming here was going to die, and you hired what turns out to be an escort, right? So that's the reveal with her character. Margot is an escort. Margot's not a real name. She even recognizes one of the rich guys at the place that she actually did some work for. And you invited her anyway. You invited this woman to her death because you wanted someone with you, and she's innocent. So he gets comeuppance for it. He's like,
I'm sorry, but I think I think he says oh, why did you bring her along anyway? And he says something like, oh, you don't serve tables for one or something like that.
Yeah. So he needed a sacrifice effectively so that he could come, and he cares that much about coming. And effectively he says, I mean, well, this is not what he says right away, but ultimately the point here is that you're part of the cancer that's ruined the art form of what I do, is the way you treat it, the way you deconstruct it, the way you obsess over it and act like you know what you're talking about when you don't really, belittles everything we do. That's kind of the point he gets to here. But what he actually does to him is he says, you're not really one of them, you're a chef, you belong in the kitchen with us. They give him a chef jacket. He writes his name Tyler on the chef jacket and says, you're going to make something, chef. And all of the kitchen staff just stare at him as he's forced. And he's like, what do you want, chef? What do you want, Tyler? What do you want for your ingredients? And he's like, leeks. I'll have some leeks. And I'll have what's your protein? Lamb, I guess. And he's nervously chopping things as the entire kitchen staff. It's like a really cruel but really funny scene. And some of the commentary from Fiennes was just cracking me up. He's talking to the guests, and he's like, oh, apparently we're learning some new way to chop or dice vegetables here that we've all been ignorant to. This is very fascinating. And then ultimately, when he finally finishes this quickly, hastily thrown together monstrosity, he tastes it and goes, it's shit. And that's when you get the title card for this course, like all the other title cards, but it just says Tyler's bullshit and then lists the things that are in it.
That was great. You know what it kind of reminded me of, and I don't know if you agree or disagree, or if you had a different take, but in a way it kind of reminded me of us, like, I mean, not specifically us, but just like kind of like online criticism and like you know, the way like people are so vocal about fandoms and stuff, and like, you know, how many people go online and say like, well, actually, this is how you fix the Star Wars universe or whatever, like blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, like imagine if like, yeah, some Hollywood guy just picked up like some guy on Twitter that thinks he knows, you know, how better to run a studio, and actually gave him like a chance to do it, and you know, they would just mess it up so bad. And then...
I mean, you say that, I would love to see it. I would love like Disney to hire some douchebag off Twitter and be like, hey, you run Lucasfilm for a year and we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, it's like, all right, yeah, like Snyder boy, you know, 420, all right, here, you get to make your own Star Wars movie. Let's see what you got.
No, I mean, I think part of this movie is about being self-aware, and I don't think it's saying that you can't be a fan or critique anything. I don't think it's saying that at all. Yeah. But I think it's pointing out a level of obsession, and you know, and I think it is healthy for even us, dare I say, to sometimes take a step back and just have a better perspective on what we're doing, what we're talking about, what we're saying, how we engage in that conversation, all those things. Because you know, a big part of the chef character himself is that he's not absolving himself as part of this. So he is going to die with the rich people at the end, because he is as guilty of perpetuating the system that he is, you know, he is critiquing. So
I think the most interesting part about like when you're talking about, you know, what he's saying is where he's saying like I forget his exact wording, but I think you did a good job saying it, of like how like, you know, deconstructing it is, you know, kind of ruining the art and stuff. And so yeah, like, I wouldn't think that's like, yeah, I wouldn't equate that to criticism. I think that's like a different thing, but like it does kind of like make me feel, you know, like about how many, you know, like freaking like, you know, videos they are that are like blank movie ending explained, or like, you know, 50,000 Easter eggs that you missed in this. And it's like, yeah, there is something to like, there's definitely like, you know, a difference between like criticizing or like talking about art and having discussions, and then, you know, these kind of people that just need every little thing explained or broken down. And I do kind of like agree with what he's saying a little bit about how that kind of like does demystify stuff, you know.
I mean, I think with that, and especially with art, like you are supposed to talk about it, you're supposed to converse about it, like otherwise what would the point be if it was just this thing you never shared with anyone? And like talking, but there's a healthy way of talking about it. There's a healthy way of critiquing and deconstructing, and you know, it kind of comes up. It's what comes up later about, you know, Anya Taylor-Joy says, "Oh, there's no love in this food. You know, you used to cook with obsession rather than love." And I think, you know, if the conversation, that's not to say that you have to love everything you're talking about. Far from it. That would be ridiculous, because then there'd be no, you know, levels to anything. You wouldn't be honest about anything. You'd just be saying you love everything for no reason. But the critique comes from a place of love, because you, in this case with us, we love film, we love horror movies, so we talk about what works and what doesn't. And when we're critiquing a horror movie that's bad and doesn't work, it's because we want them to be good, or because we want to recognize the good ones for doing not even just the right things, because that implies that there is a right way to do it, but more so that they do something inventive, or they do something that does work, or they try something different, or you know, whatever it may be. There's healthy and unhealthy ways to talk about anything, really. I mean, fundamentally. But the comparison to online critics did not was not lost on me. If to answer your original question, I understand why you're saying it made you think of us.
Yeah, and just to add to real quick to something that you just said, I also do always like to point out that like you're talking about like unhealthy, like healthy and unhealthy ways of talking about stuff. Just because sometimes you don't like a particular movie or something doesn't mean that like you're being negative or like unhealthy about it. Like I think sometimes people, you know, equate like just having like an opinion and saying like, oh, I didn't like this, you know, maybe a popular movie or whatever, like people automatically like think like, oh, like you're just like a hater, and like stop trying to like, you know, ruin our fun and stuff. Like I don't know, that just kind of always irks me. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
There's definitely an asshole way to, you know, be like, oh, this movie sucks, and anyone that watches it is a big dumb baby. Like, yeah, like, you know, whatever. Maybe you don't want to be that guy or whatever. But just because you don't like a movie, like it always annoys me when people are like, yeah, like, you know, if you don't like it, maybe just don't talk about it. It's like, no, like you should be able to talk about things that you don't like and have a discussion as to why you didn't like it or it didn't work for you versus, you know, like your friends and stuff. But yeah, that's something that always, like, I think is kind of weird.
Yeah. There's like a weird gatekeeping to conversation, which is odd. Yeah, it's after this part of the movie, Tyler is obviously standing there distraught, and he's taken away, and we had just assumed that he's killed, and we see afterwards that he's hanging. Margot sees him through a door, just hanging there. Now, I do question.
I think like the chef like whispers something to him.
He does, yeah.
I don't know if it's specifically like kill yourself or if it's just like whatever he said. Like, I mean, he's already like destroyed.
Oh yeah, he is. The only problem, my comparison to Zack Snyder probably, and this is not to rag on Snyder, but I don't think Zack Snyder is like someone who dislikes the people who love his stuff. I feel like he loves it. He's got a dedicated fan base, whereas this guy, like the chef here, like he has disdain for people who talk about his work this way. He doesn't like it. It's very, very, very different. So yeah, and that's kind of his like arc in the movie, or if you can call it an arc, but that's his story in the movie. I don't know
if I interrupted you, but he hangs himself. That's basically what ends up being his fate. Yeah.
So yeah, just to go through the other guests then and talk about what their stories are in terms of what we learn about them. So the three rich douchebag kind of younger guys. We sort of hear they complain it because the second course is just it's meant to be a bread course that comes with like sides, like different sauces you can dip the bread in, but he just gives the sauces and it's like, no. The poor people eat bread. You're the rich. You don't get bread. Yeah. You just get the delicate sauces.
And I think this is like it's supposed to be like a particularly like really good bread that they're known for or something, because everyone is like expecting it and like really wants it, and he's just like denying it. And then this one I thought was particularly funny because it is like the kind of like artsy bullshit that like you could see like someone doing, like being like, oh, see, like the absence of the food is like part of the the experience, like without without tasting it, like imagine it, like or whatever, and like and you can see like some of the other people in the restaurant are kind of buying into it.
The critic, the food critic, she is like, oh, this is so risque. I think she calls it. She's like, oh, this is how outrageous. I love it. Like, there's kind of that. Actually, it's interesting though that Margot reacts to this also as this is ridiculous. It's a restaurant. We're supposed to be served food. Like she also has a complaint with this, so it's to show that everyone would have a problem with this. But it's the trio of douchebag characters who are like, hey, come look, do you know who we are? We actually work for the guy who now owns this restaurant. Just give us some bread, please. Come on. And she and the head like waiter lady, she's like very stern to it. She's like, no. And then she actually whispers something in his ear right before she goes, where he's like still trying to get her to just give them some bread. And she leans in and goes, I'll just try to remember the exact word of it. You will eat less than you desire, but more than you deserve.
Yeah,
I think was the line.
That sounds right. Yeah.
And it just like it shakes him. He's just sort of sitting there like, what the hell did she just say to me?
I like these characters because they feel like especially entitled. Like, I mean, everyone here is very entitled, but they especially are like, no, come on, like we're good for it. Like they especially do that like very this thing that I hate that like I've had to put up with like when I worked like in like service industries and stuff, where like customers do that thing where they try to be very friendly and like kind of like jokey with you and like, okay, but come on, like I know the rules, but you can break them for me, and then like don't even wait for you to respond, like it's all right, like come on, you do it, like don't worry about it. And it's like, no, like I can't, like I can't break the rules, sorry. Yeah that was interesting. So their whole thing, which comes up in the memory course, which is the Taco Tuesday course. So they get given tacos and they get given a chicken thigh to cut up and put in their tacos, which I'm like, how lazy are you? You making the guests cut up their own meat for the tacos? Like, Jesus Christ. But anyway, so yeah, they're given tacos and they're given like the meat and the other ingredients separately, and they're given like the tortillas. And the tortillas though, because they've researched all these guests and they know who they all are, all have like images on them, like in the taco itself and the tortilla. And
for the trio of guys, it's like bank statements and like transaction statements of like proving that they're like, you know, basically committing fraud and like claiming,
It's like embezzling money from
they're embezzling,
company.
and they're like, what the hell is this? In fact, one of my favorite lines of the whole movie is when they're talking about this, and they're like obviously freaked out, and they're like asking, and they even ask like the women over, and they say, what's this? And she's like, it's a tortilla.
Yeah. That's
No,
funny.
yeah, but what's this? Tortilla. But one of my favorite lines of the whole movie is after she leaves and they're talking about it themselves, and one of them says, "Look, it's just a taco," and the other guy goes, "Yeah, it's a taco that will hold up in effing court."
That's funny.
That's a good line. There's a few good lines in this, but that one stuck out to me. So that's
Just
yeah, you go.
I was saying, yeah, talking about that like head waitress as well. Just she did a really good job of like being very like stern and like you did feel like a little bit of a menace. Like there was a threat to her, which obviously like she goes berserker a little later on in the movie. But yeah, I thought she did like a good job of being very menacing.
Oh yeah. If anything, like the end of her character story where she tries to kill Margot because she's worried she's going to be replaced by Margot or for some reason, is probably the weakest thing in the whole movie. It comes out of nowhere. It gives us a fight scene where she gets stabbed in the neck by the end, but honestly, it just kind of felt like it didn't need to be there, and I don't really, you know.
Also, like it's not like even if she did replace her, it's not like they have a future. Like
I know they're going to die anyway. But maybe it's critiquing the Evening staff who are so devoted to him they're willing to do this as a critique on them itself. You know, the sheep that follow him into whatever he's doing.
Yeah, I do think there was something to that I wanted maybe explored a little bit more as to like if it was just like one or two, you know, other people, like I could understand why they'd, you know, be so obsessed and willing to die with them, I guess. But like the fact that it's like a whole, like there's a decent amount of people there.
Yeah,
it's like
maybe 20 people or something like that,
yeah. It's like, okay, like is there a specific reason you're all like so willing to like is he just that charismatic or whatever? But
they all just believe in the art
so
so much that they're willing to do it.
I mean, if it's like so much of their life and stuff, and I guess like they all kind of live together and stuff, like it already feels a little culty.
It's very culty, absolutely. It feels like a cult. You know, so the other characters, we're going through the characters here. So we did the trio. There's the married couple who there's not much to them other than that Margot recognizes the husband, and when we find out it's when the chef like talks to her and tries to ask like, who are you? He's trying to figure out who she is to see what she deserves and that kind of thing. And she reveals that, you know, she's an escort and that she had him as a client, this rich married guy, and there's like a throwaway line about how like what he wanted from her was just for her to tell him like how great he was while he masturbated, and that was like basically it. But I think what's interesting from this is less so much the character, because obviously the tacos they get have the it's like a printing of him with a woman. It might be Margot, it may not, I don't know. It's not like it's that detailed. It's made out of bread. Like it's only so detailed. But I think what's interesting about this is that later on, when Margot and this wife like share a moment together, like the wife reacts to her and says, "You know my husband," and she's like, "Yes," and it's just kind of like a bit of a cold moment. But I think what's really interesting is at the end of the movie, when Margot's sort of like figured a way out of the situation and she's effectively been let go to leave and like be saved. I do think it's a really touching little moment that it's this guy's wife who's the one person who sort of gives her a little gesture that says, just go. Like,
it's okay.
Yeah, go save yourself. It's fine. The idea that she's the one in the room who has sympathy for her still, I actually thought was a really nice little touch of like, you know, this is not this young woman's fault that my husband's a cheating, you know, scumbag or whatever. You know, like she doesn't deserve this. Let her go.
Yeah, like she's probably out of everyone. I mean, you know, other than Margot, obviously, like out of everyone, she kind of seemed like maybe the most like person I felt bad for. Because I mean,
well, hold on,
we don't know a ton about her. Like she could be horrible.
She could be, but come on now, Tim. She did suggest that they had cod the last time we're there, and as the chef says, it wasn't cod, you effing donkey. which is another one of my
That
favorite
was
lines.
true. That was really funny.
Donkey. What an insult. I love it. Yeah. So they cut off his finger because he tries to leave the husband at one point. This is after, of course, they've seen something serious, which is one of the main chefs like committing suicide in front of them because he really wants to be as successful as the main chef, but he never will be. And this is all about I don't know, regret or like failed ambition or, you know, accepting your place. So he kills himself with a gun in his mouth. And some of them still don't believe it's real. Some of them are going, oh, it's performance. Oh, it's a squib.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's all part of the theater of the experience.
I think it's notable that the food critic's saying that, and it's the actor in the room who leans over and goes, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
I love it's the actor who's like, no, that was goddamn real.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a little bit of some fun stuff with that. Obviously, the actor's whole thing is that he's kind of past his prime, and his assistant wants to leave him, thinks he's a bit of a loser, and he's not. And there's a few moments where he'll bring up the films that he was in, and he'll say, you know, but we can try and rush them with blades, you know, when they try to bring out the next serving. It worked in a movie that I was in. Like, that means anything.
Yeah. I would say he definitely had, like, the best reason why the chef wanted to kill him. Like, that was really funny.
Well, it's the funniest reason. I wouldn't say it's the most justifiable reason.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah, like the funniest part. That really got me.
Because at one point he stands up and says, look, I deserve to know why you want to punish me so bad, you know, beyond just the broad idea of being rich. And the chef's like, well, I saw your film, which I forget what the title was.
It was something like Dr. Sad, like
Sunshine, maybe Dr. Sunshine,
something like that.
Yeah. But he's like, I saw your film. I only had one Sunday off that month, and I went to the cinema and I watched your film, and I was so sad and just, you know, just regretted my time immensely. And immediately he's like, I was only in it, I didn't direct it. He's like, yes, but your face seeing it right even now just brings back so much sadness. And which actually leads to probably the other big funny line that I've seen when I did a quick check to see what other people thought about the movie. This was the line that everyone was bringing up. Was he turns to his assistant and says, what about her? She's just my assistant. And you know, Rafe, you know, the chef for a second goes, okay, good point. He's like, where did you go to school? And she's like, somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, student loans? And she goes, no. Oh, then you have to die.
I forgot about that line. That was first.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, her reaction to it was quite good too. So, you know, it sets up all these characters and kind of like we find out more about them as it goes on, and but more than anything, just how they are relatively delusional or entitled or greedy or up their own ass like the critic who thinks all this is whatever. One of the things that they keep doing with her is that the first course is like a soup thing, and or maybe it's the second, I don't know, whatever course it was, but there was a soup thing early on where she complained that it, you know, to her, even to the staff or the chef, just to her manager dude, that it was broken. You wouldn't expect that in a restaurant of this quality. This broken quality to the soup, and throughout the rest of the night, the chef sends out bigger and bigger bowls of this soup that has the same problem. It's kind of like an FU kind of moment. So, you know, there's that going on. No, it's a very interesting. Obviously, it's not meant to be taken super literal. It's definitely a satirical film with elements that are like not realistic, that are larger than life or whatever. But there is kind of an interesting heart to it, where his like genuine conundrum of like, what do I do with this Margot girl, because she's not supposed to be here and she doesn't really belong to this rich elite, and she's not one of my staff. He tries to make her one of his staff, you know, briefly. You know, he gives her a job to do, so she's technically one of them because that's the side she belongs on. But he is conflicted over that, and that's why I'm saying, like, I think when you realize that he's only going after this elite rich because of how awful they are, you're like, okay, I'm kind of siding with him almost. You know, sure. I'm kind of on his side. But then he goes so far in like how like punishing he is to them that it's like, oh, I don't know, he's actually maybe a bit severe. Now I'm thinking about it. But by the end,
it's almost like
there you go.
You know, it's almost like Jigsaw in a way. Like, you know, like in the Saw movies, like his whole thing is always like, oh, like people, you know, that are not taking life for granted or whatever. I'm gonna make them appreciate life. But then, yeah, you always do it in like a way that would just make someone want to die. Like, I would just like instantly die in a saw trap.
I think for that to work in the Saw movies, though, because I don't think it does, is that there has to be people that maybe get caught up in the story that he intentionally tries to let go or save because he doesn't think they deserve it. But he never does. I don't think that ever happens in any of the Saw movies. Whereas here, like, our chef character is kind of conflicted and doesn't really want to, but he's like, well, it's all in process now. And when she's out snooping, when she's given this job to go get this barrel from like a shack or something, she goes into his place, which is right before the lady tries to kill her. But she sees some photographs of him at different restaurants, but notably one that he's smiling in, like one where he actually looks happy. And it's when he's in his like young years, it's just from the 80s or 90s, and he's got a burger on like he's flipping a burger, and
yeah, no, it's like an employee of the month plaque, and it's him at, I think it's like Hamburger Howie's or something like that.
Yeah, some local hamburger place, and he actually looks happy, and that builds up to a big climax where right before the final course, she says, "No, I wasn't happy with the food, and I want to send it back." She even claps her hands like he's been doing with the staff all night.
No, I like this ending here where I wouldn't say that we've really like established any like specific rules, I guess, up to this point, but I like that she kind of figured out like this game, or not like a game, but it's like, oh, like this is a restaurant, and like maybe I can use like restaurant logic to, I don't know if it's necessarily like tricking him or just
I don't think it's tricking him,
giving him sympathy. Like,
I don't think it's tricking. I think I wouldn't look at it like that at all. I think the way this ending works, where she claps her hands together and she says, "I wasn't happy with the food. I'd like to send it back." Something that he's not letting anyone do. Like, no one sends food back to him, right? You eat the goddamn food you're given. And she's like, "No, I wasn't happy with it." And then she explains why. And this goes into like everything he's been saying all movie about how they're all pretentious. They eat their food because they want to brag about the experience, because they want to pretend that they understand the art of it. And she says, "There's no love in this food. It's made with obsession. You obsess over it. No, you don't love it. Like I don't taste any passion in it. So I don't want it." And he's like, "Well, I can make you something then." He takes the challenge, and she's like, "I want a cheeseburger. I don't want anything fancy. I don't want it to be, reflective. I just want a good goddamn cheeseburger." And he's like, "I'll make a traditional cheeseburger." But there's a moment though when she asks for it, like he smiles just like a little bit. Like this request is like a real request. It's like, no, she wants a cheeseburger because eating the cheeseburger she will enjoy and it'll make her happy. And he's not really cooked food for anyone who will just be happy they're eating the food in such a long time that it's a genuine thing. So he brings her the cheeseburger. And this is why everyone wants a cheeseburger after this movie, because you get close-ups of him flipping the burger and putting the cheese on, and it looks, so it's a double.
It melts.
Yeah, it's a double cheeseburger. Honestly, this thing, like one patty would have been enough. Like, see, when I was younger, I used to always double up, but to be honest, I'm thinking specifically of proper restaurant cheeseburgers, like stuff like McDonald's are really thin, so whatever. But like I'd be like adding like so much like fat and calories to the meal for no reason other than to feel worse at the end of it. Like one nice patty a burger is plenty in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But he gives her this double cheeseburger. It looks like the most delicious thing you've ever seen. She takes one bite and says, "That's a good cheeseburger." But I don't think I will eat it now. I think I'm not as hungry as I thought. I would like it to go. And he basically sort of recognizes what she's doing and is like, "I will accept this. I will give you this way out because you don't deserve to be here." And this request for the cheeseburger is her kind of like saying, "Yeah, I don't belong to this crowd." And I think one of the important details as well is that, at the start of the movie she's complaining, or she sort of mocks the price of this and that everyone's paying this. When he says he'll make the cheeseburger, she says, "And how much will that set me back?" And he says $9.95, and it's the idea that this is her paying her money for something she can afford that she will enjoy, and she will see value in it. She will appreciate it, and he's happy to fulfill that requirement. Because he could have said, "Oh, it'll be like $100 burger." No, he's like, "No, it's a cheeseburger, $9.95." And because even earlier on when he was talking to her, he said something like, there was a line earlier on to her about her parents like barely buying something you look forward to eat that your parents were struggling. That's all they could afford. So that's what you look forward to, was this cheap food. And this idea that she gets more enjoyment out of this cheeseburger than any of these rich assholes will get out of any of this fancy stuff that, you know, has like artistic merit behind it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So yeah. But yeah, so he lets her walk out with a doggy box, a doggy bag.
Yeah. It's cool. Like, she's essentially like, you know, the final girl here, and it's, you know, it's like a very different type of, you know, movie than like a slasher or something. So, but I like that, like, you know, she still had to, like, you know, even though like you're saying, like early on, like, you know, was trying to decide what to do with her, and you did kind of get the sense that he felt sorry for her, and he was probably looking for a way to like let her out. But I like that, yeah, you know, she still had to think of like some way of doing it, and then you know, it's a nice resolution, and then yeah, seeing her escape, and then like you said, it is surprisingly kind of touching, because like as she's leaving, you know, she kind of looks back, and it's like, you know, there's this sense of like, how do I save the rest of you? And like you brought up earlier, like it's just like, you know, the one, you know, older lady that kind of just like confirms with her like, we can't be saved, just go save yourself, it's fine.
And I think that's like a really strong thematic point at that moment. And it's worth mentioning at this point in the movie, none of the rich people are trying to leave anymore. They've all just kind of accepted their fate, which is almost just kind of like the chef is like kind of made his point, where the idea that this menu has to end with their death, that's what brings it all together. Like at this point they're so defeated, because there's been a few different things that have built up to them feeling like they can't get away, which we'll get into. But yeah,
and then yeah, he has a really good line where, you know, something I've been thinking about you know, the whole movie is like, there's not that many people there, and yeah, there is like some, you know, like tough looking people at the door and stuff, but at the same time it's like, you know, you're not going to try to rush him or something. And then you know, I think it's funny that the chef even brings that up, like when he's kind of, yeah, at some point he's like making the speech or whatever, and he says like, for God's sakes, like, you guys probably could have escaped, like, if you like banded together and tried to rush us, like, but you didn't, like, which is, yeah, like a good allegory for, you know, the rich. Like, there's so much that you can do with your money, and you don't. You just waste it on experiences like this.
Yeah, and there's also this entitlement of like they expect to be saved rather than to save themselves, and any discussion of like trying to is kind of futile. And a couple of the big set pieces that we've not talked about before this point that we should sort of touch on is, one, there's like a was it Man's Folly or whatever it was called, where the course is just for the women. So one of the things the chef does is he gets them all outside before the course starts, and he explains, or it's not even him that explains, he gets one of his cooks up, this woman, and she explains that the chef tried to sleep with her. I can't remember how long ago she said it was, but, and then he tried again a second time, and then after that he didn't fire her, but he basically gave her the cold shoulder and wouldn't talk to her directly and kind of treated her poorly because she turned him down. And this is like him taking responsibility for, like, it's one of his faults, you know, one of his actions in the system where he's in charge and they have to follow what he says and so on, like the power dynamics. And he goes over and I actually thought she stabbed him in the dick at first, but she stabs him in the thigh with like, you know, kitchen scissors, and she wipes the blood on his white chef's coat and he says, "I'm sorry." And this is like him, like, you know, repenting for what he's done. And it's this idea that like the men are worse than the women most of the time for various reasons, and it's like, we're going to give the men a head start to try and leave. They've got 45 seconds, so they all run, except notably Tyler, who is just enjoying everything. He doesn't want to, but he runs. All the men run, and the idea is that they will all try and get away and leave the women there if they can. They say they're going to get help and send it back, but yeah, you know, we'll see about that.
I forget. I think it's like John Leguizamo. I forget what he says, but it's something funny. Like he's like, "Oh, come on, you know I was a coward," or like something like that. That made me laugh.
Yeah, and they all have futile attempts. Like one of them makes it to the water. One's hiding in a in the hen house or whatever it is.
So that one was funny because that was like the last person to be found, and then like you just see like the hen house opens and like they just offer him like this little dessert or something.
Yeah,
like,
so
congratulations on being the last person. Yeah, so that woman, like you almost like feel bad for her, like when she's telling her story, but then later on you find out like it was her whole idea to have everyone die.
Yeah,
like,
well,
at the end.
she sits with all the women who are left to have their course, right? And this is when the wife talks to Anya Taylor-Joy. So, when all these little moments happen, basically they try to appeal to her and say, hey, like, why don't you help us? Like, why don't we change how this works? Why don't you help us get away? And why do we have to die at the end? And then they're basically like thinking they've got a chance of talking, because this is a woman. She might be sensible enough to listen to them. She might want to help them. And then she reveals that it was her idea for it to end with the death. And they all just sort of go quiet and like, well, might as well eat more of this dessert then.
Yeah. I think it's like the food critic who was like really trying to like prod her and be like, like you should start your own restaurant and blah blah blah. And then when she's like, oh no, like I can't do that. This was my idea to have everyone die. And then the food critic's just like, all right. And then like, she kind of just has this reaction like, F it, and then just starts like either drinking or eating or whatever. And
notably, when she says you should start your own restaurant, she's specifically trying to like kind of not bribe her, but say, I'll help you. I can put I can help you get a restaurant off the ground, because I've got such a, and because one of the things about the critic we've not really mentioned is that she's had a lot of restaurants be closed with her reviews. That so a lot of all of her tacos had photos of the restaurants that she got shut down by like giving bad reviews. So it's this idea that she holds so much power in her opinion and what she does to the businesses and livelihoods of all these different people. The idea that she's like, hey, I can like help you be successful. She's trying to basically convince this woman that she can become upper class, she can become one of the rich, and she'll help her do that. And that's the thing, that there's several moments in the film where someone says, how much money will this take to let us go? Like, we'll pay whatever you want. And it's like, your money is not going to save you. It is no good here. Like, you cannot get out of this with money. So, yeah. And unless you're a rich person, watching this is very satisfying when those moments spring up. For obvious reasons, one might say. As a great because one of the things they do as well, after the suicide, because they've already had that, but there's a moment between courses where they kill the owner of the restaurant. Like, they reveal that they've got him outside and they've got angel wings on, and they lower him slowly into the water. And he's like, and the chef's like, listen, because you can hear him like screaming and moaning outside. He's like, and silence once he's in the water.
Yeah, and that was the guy who's the boss for like the tech bros.
Yeah. He bought this restaurant recently, and apparently kept them open during COVID. Was one of the lines they slipped in here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is when Anya Taylor-Joy's snooping around, she actually finds a shortwave radio and calls in the Coast Guard, and this Coast Guard guy shows up, and the chef says, "Look, if you tell him what's going on or ask him for help, we'll have to kill him. And he's an innocent man, so I'd rather you didn't do that. So don't do it." And the guy comes in, he's asking, did anyone call for anyone? Everyone's sort of just nervous, and the chef's kind of talking and, try to like get out of it. And then he recognizes the actor. He's like, oh, I like you in that movie. In fact, that's really made me laugh actually, because he says, oh, what's that one you play a surgeon? And like Asmo just looks over at Rafe and goes, Dr. Sunshine. But he's
like, yeah, man, me and my wife love that one.
But he's writing what's supposed to be an autograph, but when the guy looks down at the note, it just says help us. And he pulls out a gun, and there's a whole standoff moment, and there's this bit where all the rich people start to like sigh and like, oh my god, finally this is over, this guy's taking control of the situation, he's going to like get us out of this. And then the guy uses the gun for the candle, which turns out to be a lighter, and then like the chef says, good job, and it's like, nope, this was all a ruse, you're helpless, like this is it, you're stuck here. So by the end of the movie, none of them are even trying to run, none of them are trying to fight. I think part of it's they don't know what it is to actually really fight and like actually try and survive, whereas Anya Taylor-Joy's character figures it out, because she's been surviving seemingly her life, so it's got a lot of witty moments. There's a lot of like good reactions to some of the courses or things the chef says, or even some of the chef's reactions to some of the things the others say. There's a lot of entertainment value throughout those elements, but there is like genuine tension when they've all just witnessed someone shoot himself or someone be drowned, or all these moments.
Like that's what, like that's the thing that I feel like makes it a horror movie to me, because like yes, it is very funny, and I totally understand why people call it like a dark comedy and everything, but at the end of the day, it's still a movie about like people trapped, knowing that they're going to be killed by this chef, and there is a lot of like tension and stuff that comes from that I can see the horror in that. And we haven't even really talked about the ending, like how he actually kills them.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, the final moment, of course, is Anya Taylor-Joy finishing the rest of her cheeseburger after taking the boat across the water, and she looks back at the burning building, and notably, she wipes her mouth with the menu itself. This idea that, again, she's outside of this system, she's enjoying the simple food, blah blah, yeah, all that good stuff.
Specifically, the way though that he's burning it is he's turning everyone into like human s'mores.
Oh,
like he's
yeah.
putting.
I wasn't ignoring that. I was going to get to all that.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
I wanted to talk about the actual, because it ends with this kind of like downbeat comedy moment almost of like well, not even comedy, just very satirical of her enjoying her cheeseburger, and this menu didn't mean anything to her. There was no like grand meaning behind it. It's just a napkin. It's just something for her to wipe grease off of her face. That's it.
Yeah, the whole thing that they've been building up all night, because he keeps referring to it as the menu. Like he keeps calling this course, like this evening, the menu, and then at the end of everything that was so important to everyone else, but at the end of the day, like you said, she just uses it as a napkin. Very good moment.
Yeah. The actual thing though is he starts spreading around the different ingredients for s'mores, particularly the chocolates and the caramel sauces around. He puts down graham crackers and stuff. But then on the people themselves, he gives them like these it's like rings of marshmallows around their chest, and then puts like chocolate hats on them. So when he stands in the middle and sets fire to himself to start the fire, and the fire spreads, you actually see the bottom of the marshmallows starting to roast, and the chocolate hat on one of them starts melting down their face. Like, it's really obviously violent and dark, but also really funny as well as a visual, because you're seeing all the food itself cook. I like that, because he says something before he does it where like, this kind of represents, like, like most people think of childhood with this, but it's kind of like a good representation of the gluttony and the like all the things that you are and stuff like that. I can't remember exactly what he says here, but Tim, that cat is obsessed with trying to ruin my attention with constantly jumping across the camera once or twice, whatever, but he's been going back and forth for like 5 minutes. What's he doing?
I don't know, he just likes jumping over the microphone. I don't know why. Like, I'm more than happy to give him some pets, but just like stay in one place,
Yeah. But
he's showing his butt just off camera. Like, there'd be a big cat anus.
Do you know what's funny is I was hungry before I started this, and I intentionally ate food before I watched it because I was worried that it might be gross. I was, because I thought it might be a cannibal movie, or it might be them eating really disgusting stuff, and that never actually happens. If anything, all it did was make me want a burger at the end. Right. So like. It's not a gross movie, but going into it, there's definitely the potential for it, because you think, oh, it's about food, maybe they have to eat something disgusting, so on, But yeah, no, it was a good time. Just little touches, like Nicholas Hoult at the start of the movie said he's describing the technique they used to like make one of the things, and he's like, oh, they used this special thing, and then later on when Anya Taylor-Joy is like fighting the head waitress, she like hits her with like this device in the kitchen, this mixer thing. No, don't remember that.
I mean, I remember hitting it. I didn't. I don't think I specifically remembered him mentioning it in the beginning, but that's a nice callback. Yeah,
well, it's brought up. That's the third time it's brought up, because the second time is when the chef is making him cook. He actually, when he's like sort of saying, hey, you know your stuff, he mentions, oh, you recognize this, you recognize we used this. So it's actually been said twice by that point, and then you actually see it as kind of the payoff. I do think like her fighting and for her life and stabbing her is the weakest part of the movie, just because it feels kind of like, it almost just kind of feels like we wanted like a big, like, I don't know, suspense scene here where we could have like a big payoff to it, rather than because it needed it. But it's a minor quibble.
Not necessary. Yeah, like I wouldn't say I like hated the scene or anything, but it definitely didn't feel like something that was needed, and kind of feels a little out of tone with the rest of the movie, because it's not like a movie where people are like fighting a lot or whatever.
No, yeah, that's the main thing. Is I think it feels out of tone with the rest of the movie, because I think it's really smart that this movie, like you say, she's kind of a final girl, but she's a final girl not because everyone else has been killed gradually over the course of the movie. It's everyone's going to die at the end, and she just finds a way to get out of it. And it's a really satisfying way she gets out of it as well. By appealing to the chefs, like, when he loved cooking, and for the people he used to cook for, by appealing to that, like, she's able to get out, and that's kind of nice. So, he remembered what it was like to actually care about what he was making, and she gave him. It's almost like she gave him this gift right before he died. It's like, you got to experience that one last time. You got to experience actually enjoying being a chef again.
Not enough that he would maybe want to call all this off, but
no. Well, I mean, they'll all go to jail if he does now.
Yeah, you can't really back out at that point.
And what's so good actually is that it's not even like Anya Taylor-Joy's character Margot / Erin will even be questioned about this, because her name is not in any way associated with anything that's there. It's this other woman's name who was supposed to go, who's on all the documentation, who was supposed to be at the event. She kind of can just fade away into the night, and no one will know she was ever there, as long as there was no witnesses that maybe saw her, like, leaving the boat or something.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah, so she gets to just and with a bit of luck, the fire maybe erased any evidence that would tie her to the scene anyway. So bing bang bongo. So, Tim.
Yeah.
Would you like to rate the menu?
My rating tonight will be delivered in a 5-course serving, starting.
It does sometimes feel like you talk for 5 courses. I'll admit.
No, I mean, this is. I'm glad we're able to squeeze this in. Because I enjoyed it quite a bit. I only really message you to like switch up the schedule if a movie is either really good or really bad. Like,
yeah, that's true. There's no middle ground. It's either really bad or really good. Yes, that's true.
Like this is one of the examples. Like, this is a pretty good movie. We can probably get a discussion out of it. Sometimes it's like, oh my god, you're not gonna, this movie sucks so bad. I can't be the only one to have watched it. Like, you gotta suffer through it with me. But no, I was very happy with it. It was. It's just a little bit under 2 hours, I believe.
It's about like 1:45
50 or so.
Yeah, something like that.
But I thought it like flew by really quick. Like, there's actually a couple of times like where we had to pause it to like take the dogs out or whatever, and it was one of those movies where, like sometimes, like if I'll be watching a movie with my wife, like, one of us will have to go to the bathroom or something, and they're like, do you want me to pause it? It's like, nah, like, I'm not into it. Like, this was one of those movies where it's like, oh crap, I have to like take the dogs out or I have to like do something real quick. Do you mind pausing it? I was like, yeah, but hurry up. Like, I want to see what happens. Like, yeah, we were both really into it. Again, it's like, it's an ensemble movie, but like, everyone in it is very interesting and does a really good job. And Anya Taylor-Joy is just, she, did a really good job, as being like the, final girl kind of character you're rooting for throughout the movie, and just everyone's very charismatic, and and it's just like a good story, and it was funny. Like it feels so rare that like, because I feel like, there's like just not that many comedies, and then like the comedies that do come out usually suck. So again, it's like, a different type of comedy. It's a dark comedy, satirical and stuff, but it does feel good to actually watch something and laugh, which doesn't happen as often nowadays. So yeah, really happy with it. I was kind of bouncing between like an 8 and 8.5. I think I'll just go with the straight 8 here. But I don't know, if I watch it again, maybe I can see it getting bumped up a little bit. Maybe just because it's a little new. But yeah, I'll just go with the straight 8. Really good, very solid.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with the 8. I think it's really good. I think my any quibbles I could have is maybe, that one extra fight scene that just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. With what's her face, Margot.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that scene was just kind of tacked in. It didn't really hurt the pacing. I just kind of feel like it wasn't needed for the story. And then maybe maybe a little more exploration of just the devotion to the chef by all the people who are working for him. Like, don't get me wrong, maybe it would take away from it if we ruined some of that mystique, but it definitely feels like maybe there could have been a little bit more to tease, like how they were so devoted to him. But
it's it's very rare to say this in this day and age where there's so many movies that don't need to be 2.5 hours that are 2.5 hours. But I wouldn't have minded if this movie was a little bit longer. Like, I don't want 45 more minutes, but yeah, like, if it was maybe just like a solid 2 hours or whatever, if there's a little bit more room to explore something like that, like, I wouldn't mind it.
I mean, I whatever makes the pacing feel right. I really don't.
Sure.
Mind regardless, but yeah. So yeah, 10 for me. It's just really good. I would recommend it, and I think it is a good dark comedy with a sprinkling of horror. So there we go. But yeah, so that is our thoughts on the menu. You can of course leave your review of the restaurant in the comments below, should you wish. But obviously, if you want to support all the content in the show, you can do that over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. And of course be a YouTube member instead if that's an alternative you'd prefer. But you can share everything out, rate the podcast on iTunes, wherever you get your podcast from. All these things do help out, so please do check all these things out and support us wherever you can. Check down in the description for links to all the various useful resources and whatnot. But that is us. I will thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you very much to Tyler Hesson, The Palacios, David Sharp, Bordenau, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Treisman. You are all our producers, so thank you very much. But that is the show. That's been Screams After Midnight. So like I said, that's the Pushbackers doing our top 10 of 2022 by another slot. So I think that means, like, assuming we slip in Megan just after it comes out, I think that means that this is going out sort of in the back half of February, so we'll see you in the first half of March for our top 10 horror movies of 2022. So look forward to that. But thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.